Hey, welcome to the Healthy Post Natal Body podcast with your postnatal expert Peter Lapp. That, as always, would be me. This is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a great podcast. This week I'm doing a Q&A. Does sleeping with a pillow between your legs help diastasis recti? Do you need to exercise an hour a day to heal your diastasis? My personal trainer doesn't like to be questioned on the stuff that we do. And how can I improve my grip strength after recovering from postnatal carpal tunnel are the questions that I'm answering. In a rather lengthy podcast, I think this one will take a while. And in what is now called Read Past the Label of the week, we're talking Sudafed, which is, a very, very interesting, scammy, shitty one. Remember last week when I did the Finnebroke, the bacon? Well, this week we're talking Sudafed, pain relief. You'll want to stick around for this one. It'll be fun, I promise. Here we go. Hey, so welcome to the Healthy Postnatal Body podcast with little old me, Peter Lapp. This is the podcast for the 23rd of January 2022. I hope you're well. I hope you had a good January thus far. I'm lucky. I'm surrounded by all my 4 fluffies today. All the 4 fluffies that live with me, that I pay the mortgage for and all that sort of thing. So I've got little Buddy here. Red is the cat that you hear snoring in the background. Little Lola Bear is lying asleep on the bed and little Kitty is asleep in her own crate. So, how amazing is that? I have a nice big house, and as soon as it comes to recording time and I close the door, everybody wants in. Oh, the joys. So what are we doing today? It was time for another little Q&A. And I requested you, I asked if you could send in some questions, and you have obliged. I have some older questions as well, an older question as well that I, for some reason, never got around to. So that's what I'm doing today. I'm answering them, just, bits and pieces. We'll go in a little bit of detail on one of them, and I don't want it to sound too ranty at the time. So just so you're aware it's coming. Right, let's start with the first one. I'll do them in order, right? I'll just do the questions. I'm not reading the whole email. I'm reading the whole email out. Yes, I am. Hey, Peter, love listening to the podcast. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad you like it. Oh, by the way, let me know. Peter at healthypostnatal.body.com. You'll improve of the sound quality now, right? Do you like it better? Tell your friends you're listening and all that sort of stuff. Anyways, hey, Peter. Love listening to the podcast. Right, here we go. I am a 34-year-old mother of 2, and I've been sleeping with a cushion between my legs ever since my physio told me to do so for my pelvic alignment and helping my diastasis recti recover. I've had diastasis recti for 2 years now and still suffer from it. Is the pillow helping or not? Yeah, well, this is an interesting one. I know, and when I say interesting, it's interesting for me. I skimmed that email, by the way. I didn't read it out word for word. There was a lot of personal information in there that you don't need to know. Right, the cushion between the legs. There is a train of thought that early on, I know a lot of pelvic floor physios recommend this. I'm not opposed to this. Saying that if you keep your hips stable, so if you sleep on your back, you place the pillow or a cushion underneath your hamstrings or behind your knees. If you sleep on your front, which is the worst position to sleep in, it kind of sits on your belly, I think. If you sleep on your side, which is by far the most common position, they tell you to sleep with a cushion between your legs. And that is just to help the pelvic alignment and all that sort of stuff. And they claim it helps heal diastasis recti, or at least because everything is aligned, everything is not misaligned in their thinking for several hours. Now, she says in the email that you're suffering for this for 2 years. And that is because fundamentally, and I don't know whether you did your exercises or not, because no one says that, because it's not stated in the email. But fundamentally, you still need to do your exercises. Exercise heals diastasis recti. Things like the pillows or the cushions, whatever you put between your legs, kind of help stabilize things a little bit, but it doesn't help recovery in a direct way. Right? Indirectly, yeah, maybe. I always give the example that when I had knee problems, that was part caused by my cat sleeping on my feet. And just with its little head, it used to lie on my feet all night. And I'd stay in that position. And my physio, my massage therapist, Gareth, he figured out that was what was putting a little bit of pressure on my legs and indirectly on my knees. And that's what caused my knee pain. So there is something to be said for having good alignment when you sleep. Right? That is quite important, and I see why people recommend it. However, it is not a permanent solution because it doesn't help anything. And what is even better is just doing your exercises. Right? If you don't do your exercises, you won't recover from your diastasis recti. I personally don't recommend the pillow or the cushion between the legs unless my clients have pelvic floor issues that they tell me about. And I discuss most of these things with my clients, right? I'm not a massive fan of things that's uncomfortable. But, if it works for you, it works for you, right? I'm not going to knock it. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just not a solution. So just bear that in mind when you get told to do this. And if you have had diastasis recti for 2 years and you're sleeping with a cushion or pillow between your legs for 2 years, on the recommendation of the physio, and you're doing the exercises, right? I'll give your physio all the benefit of the doubt here. And you do the exercises they've given you. Just make sure you do the exercises they've given you if you're not doing them. If you are doing them and they're not helping, then I would probably work with somebody else. Because they clearly have a good idea with regards to the cushion and the pillows, but they clearly don't really know how to fix the problem in this particular case. Right, okay. Next, do I need to exercise for an hour every day to recover postpartum? One of my clients, this is who asked me that question directly, thought it was worth mentioning. She lives in Edinburgh, obviously, because, that's why I train people. But she's not from here. And she went back home and had her diastasis recti checked out by a women's health physio. And said, yeah, you have about 3-4 centimeters diastasis recti. And to heal that, you need to train an hour a day to get rid of that. So obviously she came to me to help with our postnatal recovery. Right? She got in touch and she said, do I need to do an hour a day? Because I just don't have the time for that because I've got a baby. Right? People with babies don't have an hour a day to exercise. And as I pointed out, that you genuinely never need to exercise an hour a day every day. That is big rehab. That is really big rehab if you need to do an hour's rehab every day. Diastasis recti is hardly ever that severe. You can target diastasis recti by doing 10 minutes a day and being of targeted exercise and being aware of it throughout the rest of the day. Just being aware and not making it too much worse. Not putting too much pressure on your diastasis, on your core. And by pressure, I mean internal pressure, right? So you mind your internal pressure, which you do by breathing and all that. So what we do, 10 minutes a day and 2 times half an hour to 45 minutes a week. It's completely fine, and you will recover from your diastasis recti in that time, assuming you don't suffer from bloating and any sort of other internal pressure. Right. Here was an interesting one. See, I'm flying through these. Now what are we in? Where are we in? 10 minutes. So only listening 10 minutes. But now the long one comes up. Right. Hey, Peter, long-time listener and of the podcast and big fan of the show. Well, thank you very much. That's much appreciated. I have been working with my personal trainer for the past 6 months and I'm getting some good results and I enjoy the sessions. Well, that's awesome, right? Win-win. Don't worry, the bad stuff is still to come. However, I'm a very inquisitive person and I always want to know why she recommends something or why we have to do something. And her answer tends to be, because I said so. I'm sorry, I'm laughing here because this is just too funny. Because I said so. Or because I studied it. Yeah, I know the type. Like I said, I'm an inquisitive person. I'm trying to learn here as well. And it bothers me a little bit that I'm paraphrasing now, because that is not how she wrote it. It was very rude what she wrote. It bothers me a little bit that she won't just answer my questions unless I ask 3 or 4 times, and then I get a sigh and a short explanation. Yeah, right. And I like this experience because when I went to PT school, they taught me that there are basically 3 or 4 clients, and 3 or 4 types of client. Sorry. You have the person that will never ask, that will just do. They want clear instructions and they want just give me a number of reps, that's what I'll do. Then you have the person that will every now and again ask why something is. And then you have someone like yourself who will ask millions of questions and you had better have an explanation. I worked with a lot of alpha type people, if you know what I mean. They're in charge, men and women who are in charge of stuff, very important people in their own organization. They're very important people, and but they're just inquisitive. They need to know stuff, and they like to challenge you regularly. And I love working with people like that because it keeps me on my toes. Right? I always say bullshit baffles brains, but not with these guys and girls. When I say guys, I mean the non-sexual sort of guys. Dudes, that's the non-gendered word these days that everybody uses. So, yes, I worked with a lot of people that challenged me all the time. Why are we doing this? And you better have a good answer for it, because otherwise, they're not going to trust your information. You don't know what you're doing. That's the feeling that they have. And there's nothing worse than a client that thinks their PT doesn't know what they're doing. For a PT, that's disastrous. That is so bad. I say you should always, always, always challenge the experts. Right? I strongly recommend because I don't know a single expert that doesn't like explaining why something is. If they are genuine experts in their field, then you should be able to question them. You should be able to challenge stuff. You should be able to come to them and say, yeah, you say X, but I read somewhere that. I don't know, that Y is also a valid approach. Let's take this example of I find this a lot, and I'll try not to. I find this a lot on Instagram and Facebook and all that sort of stuff. There are a lot of so-called experts out there that throw their opinions out and make big, bold claims. And then when you challenge them or you ask them why that is, why certain something is the way it is, or why they quote a certain study or something like that, they go silent very quickly. I know that I've been trying to have a discussion with someone this week, the No Food Rules lady, who's a registered dietitian and an intuitive eating coach. And most of the information she posts is perfectly fine information. But every now and again, there's something in there that is just incorrect and it's not true. I think she knows it. You know what I mean? It's just the stuff she's quoting is bullshit. The studies these quoting have nothing to do with the statements that she makes. And when challenged on that sort of thing, they go silent, because that is what they do. So these people tend to agree and tend to respond very quickly to people that agree with them or that tell them they're wonderful. But they go silent as soon as they're questioned. I put a post up the other day. About vaccinations. A story, basically someone on Reddit put together and blanked out, anonymized a whole bunch of comments made by nurses who had been working in ICUs in America during the COVID pandemic. Had been working with pregnant women and antenatal, postnatal situations, and horrific stories about COVID and the effects and all on babies and moms and on ventilators. I mean, horrible. So I just said, listen, I thought long and hard about sharing it. I wasn't going to originally, but I thought I'd better, because it is important to know. And it's important because I don't think these stories came out all that much as to how serious it really is for a lot of people. That definitely at least wasn't the discussion that was being had in the media that I came across. Not true and open and honest accounts, at least. So I shared it and I said, listen, this is why getting the vaccine is a good idea. And someone just said, I strongly disagree. And they're a functional medicine doctor. Right? So they strongly disagree. But when you then ask them, okay, it's interesting, you strongly disagree. Based on what do you strongly disagree with the idea that people should get pregnant? People should get pregnant. People that get pregnant should get vaccinated. They go silent. There's no answer anymore, because they have nothing. Just remember that a lot of the time, people that make have strong opinions and stuff are still just people. And in some cases, they're just trying to sell you something. And if a certain statement, such as, 95% of diets don't work, which is not true, right? If they make statements like that, or they say, what was the latest insane claim? The really crazy claim. We know dieting leads to weight gain in the same way that we know smoking leads to cancer. That was what this No Food Rules lady was saying. She runs the Society ET or something like that. All very clever names. And then when you look at the studies, there's nothing to do with it. But when you query them, you question them, there is nothing to back that up. It goes silent. Right? If someone who claims they're an expert in a certain field can't answer basic questions about the statements they make, right? We can all get stuff wrong. Lord knows I get a lot of stuff wrong, which is why I have guests on the podcast every now and again. If I can get a good guest, I'd rather have that rather than me talking about diets and all that sort of stuff. I have expert dietitians come on. And when I say experts, I mean genuine expert dietitians. I don't mean people that have an awful lot to sell and will say whatever it takes to get the sale through. I'm talking people you can have a discussion with, people you can query and question. I usually get a couple of questions about the postpartum program with regards to HPMB, Healthy Postnatal Body, and my home sessions. I regularly get questions: why do we do back flies? Why do we do hammer curls and all that sort of stuff? Why do we do stiff leg deadlifts? Because they're not exercises that feel directly connected to the problem most postpartum women are trying to fix. Right? So the back fly is obviously a posture exercise and all that sort of stuff. So that's important. So that's easily explained. Stiff leg deadlift, again, very straightforward explanation. As in, that is good for your lower back, your glutes, which are, again, posture muscles. Bicep curls, hammer curls and pullovers and all that sort of stuff are exercises that we do to prevent you to prepare your body for life. Get you lifting properly, get you lifting the baby right. A hammer curl is just picking a baby up. which is in standing upright and curling a baby up. The pullover is again bringing a baby overhead. You should be able to make movements like that without damaging your core, making your diastasis recti worse. So we're conditioning your body at that stage, at the stage that we're doing those exercises. If I didn't have that explanation, and I just went, yeah, well, just because I like the exercise, or worse, because I said so, which is also a terrible thing to say, then I think you'd already know that I didn't know what I was talking about. Right? If I give you reverse lunges to do, but I can't explain to you which muscles they're working and why it's important that those muscles are being worked, then you need to bail. You need to then go, yeah, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, so I'm not going to work with him anymore. Experts that can't explain to you why they hold a certain opinion, that's a real issue for me. That's a deal breaker for me. Because, yeah, a genuine expert holds an opinion for a genuine reason, not just to make sales. You can't just make big, bold statements and say, you have to do X, Y, Z. You have to buy this supplement. Or you have to, or these things don't work, or that thing does work, or whatever it is. You can't make statements like that without having an explanation as to back that statement up. And this is where Instagram and Facebook quite often falls down, because obviously it's a very visual medium. So it's very tempting to just throw out a little template, a little infographic sort of thing, and say this is absolute truth. But when it comes to complicated things such as diet and weight loss and postnatal recovery and diastasis recti, pelvic floor problems, all that sort of stuff, like I've said before, it doesn't fit in an infographic, right? It just doesn't. So, I mean, most of my infographics are terrible. As in, I don't really do them. I have the tiles where I have some text and all that sort of stuff, and I throw some memes out there and the occasional video, but you see very little from me that is like one or two slogans, that are one or two steps, and that are then absolute, because that is just not really the field that we're working in when we're talking postnatal recovery, right? I get concerned when I see infographics on a lot of accounts, because it implies a level of certainty behind the statement that is quite often not there. Most of the time, health and fitness is a very gray area where there are where there is a lot of room, so to speak, for having a different opinion from somebody else, taking a different approach from somebody else. I'll go back to the Jessica Marie Rose Leggio thing podcast that I did a while ago. We have a completely different approach. We both really know what we're doing with regards to postnatal, but we have a different approach. That's okay. Right? Listen to the thing again. You can listen that we all both know what we're talking about. You can hear that. Or at least you can hear that she knows what she's talking about. I'm just sitting there listening. But now you can hear that we both know what we're talking about. That there is a certain level of agreement. That there's a decent level of respect between each other. That there is not an absolute. There are certain things that have to be done, sure. But within that, there is room. If a dietitian tells you this is the only way to lose weight, a certain diet is the only way to lose weight permanently, then they're full of shit. They just are, because that is just not true. An expert wouldn't tell you that. If a dietitian says diets don't work or diets make you gain weight, then they're selling you something. And if they're a registered dietitian, that means they know they're selling you something, and they're shysters. So if you are uncomfortable asking your PT why they're doing something why you're doing a certain exercise. That's a bit of a red flag for me, right? If you can look past that and you say, okay, but I'm getting results and I enjoy the session, that's fine. You can just go past that and just go, but I won't ask questions anymore. I like, maybe to be fair to your PT, maybe you're one of those clients that talks an awful lot during training. And that is why they're saying, no, stop asking questions. We're here to train, right? That's a completely different thing. So I'll make that allowance for your PT as well. I've had clients like that took up 15, 20, 30 minutes just asking questions. And though I love it, it does mean that your session will run over because I have a set number of things I'd like you to get through. Whereas other PTs have an hour. If you're training in a gym, they have an hour and then they move on to the next client. So they can't have you spend 20 minutes just talking all the time, right? You want results, so you need to do a bit of training. And sometimes, if you're on rep number 8 and you've got off 10, and you've got 2 to go, and you start asking questions, then I get why your PT says, because I said so, now keep moving. So I'll make allowances for your PT. If it's a problem, then you switch PTs. But if not, then dude, if you're getting results and you enjoy the sessions, your PT knows what they're doing, right? But I'd be much more comfortable with someone, at least know that they know the answer to the question you're asking, right? That they're not just making it up on the spot. That's the thing. Right, so the last question of the Q&A, and is through the messenger. See, that's how old I am. Through on Messenger the other, a few weeks ago. This lady sent me an email saying, "Hi Peter, I used to have carpal tunnel after my breastfeeding, after postpartum." I'm just doing this top of my head, by the way, right? I'm not reading anything now. Just carpal tunnel postpartum, that's recovered, but my grip strength has really suffered since. How can I train my grip strength up? And that's a good question, because I think I've dealt with carpal tunnel before, because it happens a lot, right? Carpal tunnel postpartum is completely normal. Can be triggered by many things. Usually posture is involved, and breastfeeding, and how you hold babies and all that sort of stuff. Just stress on the joints. So I'm not going to go too deeply into that. But there is an issue with grip strength sometimes. Now, all you need to do for grip strength, because I know a lot of you will be suffering from this, all you need to do is an exercise called the farmer's walk, where you basically just walk upright and you hold the weight. Whatever weight you want to hold that for as long as you walk, gripping it as tightly as you can. Great exercise also for your core and your alignment and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot happening in that exercise. And those squeegee things that you can buy, Tesco sells them, Amazon sells them, the hand grippers, they're called, right? You can buy adjustable ones now, and they're about, I don't know, 10, 11 pounds, something like that. They will do the job, but it then depends on where you're struggling. Are you struggling with endurance, in which case you need to hold something for a long time? Or are you struggling to grip something tightly, in which case you can use the hand grippers and squeeze it as tight as you can, right? So just get those exercises in. It was a good question, and if Lola wasn't asleep on top of my phone, then I would open up Messenger and read out the email. But I remembered that I was going to answer it. So there you go. That's that. Right, those were the questions. I think those are all the questions. Have I all the questions? Yeah, I think so. Yes. Yeah, that sounds about right. Right. In the Read Past the Label of the week. That's what I've called that segment. Remember that Finna broke thing I did last week? Well, the Read Past the Label. I saw this on the internet, so you know this is true. Sudafed, the pain relief one. You know, and I've got a nice little picture to show you with this one as well, which will be on the YouTube, right? And I'll put a separate little video and picture out for this as well. Sudafed block nose, £4.20. Sudafed Sinus MAX Strength, £4.50. And Sudafed congestion and headache relief, £4.80. It's all the same stuff, right? It's different price, different labels, different names, but it's the same old Sudafed. So again, check the back of the labels, go for the ingredients. You'll find it's the same ingredients in this stuff. There's no change. There's no difference between these items. And therefore, you don't need to pay £4.80 from when the £4.21 will do the job. So just bear in mind that the good people at Sudafed are, they're in the sales business. They're not necessarily in the helping anybody out business. Right, I think that's it. There wasn't in the news this week, but I don't want to do it because I need to. And Michael Mosley is back, let me say that. I'm so fed up with Dr. Michael Mosley. It's, I'll do something next week. He's a shyster, right? You can ignore him. Just don't buy the Daily Mail. Don't read anything Michael Mosley ever puts out. He is a hack. And he is everything that is wrong with the health and fitness industry. He really is. He's a qualified person, of course. He's a GP, or at least he never not practicing. But he went to medical school, and never since then he decided to start selling stuff. And now he can't stop himself. On that happy note, I'm gonna leave you. Here's a new bit of music. And the podcast should be out just in time. Woohoo! Right. Have a tremendous week. I'll check in on you next week. Bye now.
Don't want to start a fight. Just leave these feelings unspoken. But you showed up tonight. Convinced that we were never broken. But girl, you never listen. You think it's what it isn't. Can't you see that? Every time we give in, we're heading for a dead end. I've got to say it. Don't make me make you cry. Won't make me change my mind. It's obvious that it isn't gonna work. Better stop running or we'll walk away hurt. I'm trying to say goodbye. Been here 1,000 times. We say yes, but we should know. We're better off, baby, if you let me let you go. Let me let you go. I'm not the enemy. I'm just trying to be honest. This isn't meant to be. You're only making this hard.